Okay, so we just read the Grimm's brothers' story, The Water of Life. Do you want to give a summary and then we'll talk about it?
Mhm. So there was a kingdom, and its king was very sick. He had a severe illness, and the consensus was that he was likely going to die. So his sons were grieving, uh, and there was like an old man, uh, and they were trying to find answers with, and the old man said that he knows of something called the water of life, and if if they're able to obtain it, he will be cured. So the eldest son said he would go find it, and the king told him that he wouldn't allow it, that he would rather die than have his son go out and get it because it was dangerous. But the son kept insisting, and finally the king relented. So he went, but and his motivation was to obtain the kingdom when his father died. And he felt that if he got the water of life, that it would guarantee that. So he got on his horse and rode, and he came upon a dwarf and, and on the road, and he told the dwarf to move away, shrimp. Uh,
Yeah, the
so
dwarf had asked him where he was going.
mhm, yeah, so that happened, and the dwarf was upset at being mistreated. So he cast or he sent a bad thought to him, or a spell. I'm not sure which, but so, and as the eldest kept riding, he kept going and going, but like the road and the forest kept closing in on him to the point he couldn't continue further, and he couldn't even turn back around.
Yeah,
So he was trapped.
yeah, or like in a ravine, and then yeah, he was trapped
Hmm.
between two mountains.
Hmm. So now uh the king was still waiting, and the middle child, or the middle son, approached the king, and he asked his father again to let him go. And of course, the king said no, but the middle son insisted, and he gave his approval for him to go. And this middle son, his motivation was that if his brother obtains the kingdom, he won't have anything. Um, and No, actually, that wasn't the motivation, but more if his brother's dead, now he's in line to get the kingdom. So again, it was more self-interest, with as his motivation for him going. So the middle son, got on his horse, and again he went down the same path and came up on the dwarf, who asked him where he was going. And again, the middle prince was very rude and called him a little shrimp, and that it had nothing to do with him. So once again, the dwarf was upset, and he also cast a spell on him. Um, and this time, uh, yeah, it was the same punishment. He went into a ravine
Hmm.
and couldn't make his way back. So now, with the two elder princes trapped, the last son begged his father to let him go, and the king gave his approval. And this son also set out, and the dwarf asked the youngest prince again where he was going, and the prince said that his father, the king, was dying, and that he needed the water of life. Um, and this prince treated the dwarf decently and didn't call him little shrimp or anything. So the dwarf said that because he was a decent person, that he would tell him where this water of life was located. And he said that it was from at an enchanted castle springing from a fountain, and that he would give him uh, two loaves of bread and a iron wand, um, so that when he reached the enchanted castle, he would strike the gates, two or three times with the wand, and the loaves of bread would serve as a distraction for some two lions that would be there once he crossed the gates. So yeah, the prince thanked the dwarf and he made his way onto the disenchanted castle. And um, I'm thinking missing a detail. I think he had a sword too.
Oh,
Um,
later on he gets a sword in the castle.
yeah. So he gets into the castle and he strikes the wand three times at the gate, and then he tosses the loaves of bread to the lion, and he's able to make it through. And then when he gets through, he comes upon two princes, and he's able to uh, remove their rings from their finger. And as he keeps going, he finds a sword, I believe.
Yeah, at the same
And
place where the princes are, a sword and a loaf of
yeah,
bread.
yeah. And then as he makes his way through, he comes across a beautiful maiden who's the princess. And when she sees him, she rejoices and tells him that he has saved her, and that if he comes back in a year's time, she will marry him and he will inherit her kingdom. So, uh, so yeah, once that happens, he finds a beautiful bed, and he's so tired that he falls asleep. But the princess had told him that he needs to get the water of life by the time the clock strikes 12. And when he wakes up, it's a quarter to 12. So he hastily wakes up and draws a cup of it from the fountain. And just as that's happening, it's going to be 12. So like he's running so fast and the gate closes and like cuts off a piece of his heel. Um, so yeah, he's out and he got the water. Uh,
Yeah, and he goes homewards
yeah,
again and he again passes the dwarf.
yeah, yeah. And the dwarf tells him that he's inherited a lot now. Yeah, that he's inherited wealth and that he could slain whole armies.
And feed whole peoples.
Hmm. Yeah. And the prince tells him, but still, though, he's missing his brothers. And he asks the dwarf if he could help him find them. And the dwarf said that because they mistreated him, he has imprisoned them. Um, but he tells them where they're located and warns him that they have bad hearts. So the prince finds his brothers and he explains to them everything that happened. The finding the water of life and his promise from the princess to be able to marry her. And as they like go through they cross kingdoms to go back to their father, the king. He he uses his sword and bread loaves to help the kings of those kingdoms slay their enemies and prosper again. And those kings are very grateful. But the brothers are envious and they speak privately and they tell each other that once once the young prince reaches their kingdom, that kingdom will, of course, the king will give him this kingdom for bringing back the water of life. So they plot against him, and when he falls asleep, they sneak into his room and they get the container with the water and they replace it with salt water, and they take the actual water of life for themselves. Um, and then so they take the water, and when they come back to the kingdom, they the youngest prince, he's overjoyed and he gives his father, the king, the salt water.
Mhm.
But of course, it's salt water, and the king spits. Well, he drinks it and he becomes sick. And And at that moment, the brothers come and accuse him of trying to poison their father. And they bring the water of life with them. And when he drinks the water of life, he recovers quickly and he's as healthy as he was in his youth.
Hmm.
And now the king believes that his youngest son plotted against him. And I believe I guess he doesn't say explicitly, but he seems to be banished. And the brothers mock him and they tell him uh, that he should have been more observant to their plot, and that now, if he's lucky, he'll be able to live.
Hmm.
But he can't tell their father, the king, anything about this.
Yeah, and one of them is gonna get the princess.
Hmm. That as well. Um, so yes, the king is so angry about this uh, that he himself plots to have his son secretly shot. So he sends the hunter to go out with the youngest into the forest, and the hunter seems to have a good heart, and he's so his conscience is so burdened that once they're deep in the forest, the young prince is able to notice that he seems upset, and he asks the hunter what's wrong. The hunter responds that he shouldn't tell him, but he has to, and he tells him that his father sent them both out there for him to be killed. Of course, the prince now fears for his life, and he tells the hunter that you know, this doesn't have to happen, and that they should exchange clothing. So the hunter takes on the prince's clothing, and the prince takes on the hunter's clothing, and the prince just leaves and goes deeper into the forest. And while he's gone and out in the forest,
Oh, three. Oh, yeah.
but anyways, they exchange clothing, and the prince is deep in the forest, staying away. And in that time, the three kings that the prince helped protect their kingdoms, they sent wagons of gold and precious stones to the kingdom. And the king starts doubting himself. He starts to think that his son helped do good deeds in these kingdoms. And he starts to wonder if he was wrong about trying to have him killed. And that, yeah, it's now weighing on his conscience. So the hunter hears this and he tells the king that he couldn't bring himself to kill his son and that he still lives. So the king then sends out a proclamation that um, his son might return, and that if he does, to just yeah, I guess to just let him make his way through. And in that time, the princess she had a golden road made up to her palace, and she knows that if the prince comes, that he will ride into on that road, and she will know it's the right person. So yes, then after hearing all this, the eldest prince, he decides it's time to make his trip to the princess soon. Um, so he goes, but when happens upon a road, he sees that it's gold, and he doesn't want to step on it because it's too beautiful. So he rides on the right side to reach the palace, and when the attendants are at the gates, they know that he's not the correct prince, so they turn him away. And soon the middle prince, um, he decides to set out for the princess to have her for himself. So he goes and when he goes on the road, the his horse only puts one foot on the road, but then the prince also decides that it's too precious to ride on. So he goes on the left side to reach the palace. And once again, the attendants know that he's not the right prince. And finally, the youngest prince, he feels that his life has kind of fallen apart, but that the only thing that would help him now is just to at least be with the princess. So he rides to the palace, and he he is so uh, motivated and consumed by wanting to see the princess that he doesn't notice the golden road, and he rides straight through it with the horse. And when this happens, the princess knows that he's the right one, and they marry. And it was also like toward just as the year was ending, so it was the original agreement they had that
Hmm.
he would come in a year's time. Uh, so yeah, they marry, and he gets the kingdom, and then his father, the king, hears about it. Um, and so the father invites him back, and the the prince explains everything that happened, including the betrayal by the brothers, um, and how he kept silent. And the king, he wants to punish the brothers, but they're out by sea and they never come back home.
Yeah. What did you think about that story?
It was, well, there's a lot of common themes, but it was also felt different too. So
Hmm.
I think
How
it had a
so?
good balance of both.
Hmm. How did it feel different to you? Is it because of how selfless and noble the prince was? The third?
No, um, it was more well, I'm probably getting far ahead of myself, but just the ending with the brothers just being gone by sea and
Hmm.
nothing really happens to them, like outside of there isn't no punishment or explicit one.
Hmm. You didn't think maybe that they never came back as long as they lived. I mean, it's like they're banished. It's like they
Hmm.
died.
Hmm.
They certainly are banished, which means they live in ignominy or death or, it's like they basically don't have anything of what they want. It's
Hmm.
like the stepsisters in Cinderella don't get to marry the prince and they have to stay at home.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, you put it that way, I guess it was still a punishment. Usually it's something like execution or something in a lot of these stories we've read.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I used to think when I was a kid, I noticed that like in the ancient world, they would often exile people instead of execute them. And I always thought that was like it was notable because it was obviously supposed to be a terrible punishment, and yet that doesn't seem so bad to me. But in the ancient world, now this is not the Brothers Grimm world, but these stories could have some of the ancient story filtered into them. But in the
mhm,
ancient world, banishment was often death, and it was a social death, and especially for like an aristocrat or something, it might
mhm,
be actual death, or at least
mhm,
like total fall and considered like your life is utterly destroyed. You don't have any connections and you will maybe be a beggar or nothing in the other place.
mhm.
People might abuse you, might kill you, things like that.
Yeah.
People in the ancient world were very tied to their city, to their land, and if they were kicked out of it, it was almost as bad as or worse than death in some ways.
Mhm. Yeah, and the idea just crossed my mind that maybe the sea is a hell of sorts,
Yeah.
since hell is separation from God. So
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the Christian worldview, so
Yeah,
in this
yeah,
case,
the in this story the sea seems to represent like really really far away into like the magical realm, into so far away it's like an unrecognizable place. Like to go to the enchanted castle with the water of life, it's like the end of the world. It's kind of like saying that. you know. It's the place where bad things happen when they're coming back in the brothers together. That's when they trick him and they kind of like turn his fate around to almost death. It's a bad place. And it's the other water in this story. It's the salt water. It's the water that makes you more sick than than you were before. It almost kills the father when the brother gives it to him. The third brother gives it to him after the other brothers have sabotaged what he's doing. So yeah, it's a very bad thing. Yeah. Yeah, what else stood out to you about this story?
Mm.
Yeah, don't be haughty. The story tells us that
Yeah.
directly.
Yeah, just the reminder, the symbols of like water and bread just had me thinking of Jesus Christ too.
Yeah, right. And with this
Mhm,
bread that he gets from the enchanted castle when he takes the rings from the enchanted princes and gets the sword also, with that bread, it's like the loaf that just keeps giving. It's a horn of plenty.
mhm,
It's the food that just keeps giving.
mhm,
And not only does it feed the whole lands of the three kings whose kingdoms are suffering from famine and war, it also gives to the prince later because they, in appreciation, send wagon loads of gold to him. And so he gets gold. And also by that, his father realizes that he's probably innocent. So it gives him his life. It gives him his relationship with his father back, which gives him his kingdom, gives him his
mhm,
reputation, gives him everything back. So yeah, those loaves help to give
mhm,
keep on giving.
mhm. Yeah, so just like there's bread and water in the Bible, I think I remember there's also mention of swords as like saying there's also a time to for I don't remember exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of swords in the Bible, but
Yeah,
what
there's
do you
like a
mean?
symbol of there's a time for action too. Um,
Mm, yeah, it's a
okay.
symbol of
Yeah.
strength. Yeah, the sword.
Mm,
Although, yes, he uses this to save people. There's no actual
mhm.
violence. The only
Yeah.
violence that is done in this story is so yeah, the sword is not used for like violence against except against presumably people trying to take over the kingdom, invaders. It's not used for invasion. Uh but yeah, the violence that is done is the conniving brothers.
Mhm,
They do violence with their words, they do violence with their with water, with like replacing the water of life with salt water, which almost kills their own father.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to say the hunter does not do violence either here. So it's
mhm,
like the sword does not do sort of, yeah, certain type of bad violence, and the hunter does not kill anybody. But
mhm.
it's the sort of other things that do the killing,
Yeah.
including that
And
salt water with the brothers who are banished, sort of seemingly by fate at the end of the story.
yeah, and, like the youngest prince doesn't seek to do anything to his brothers, but like you said, they do to him.
Yeah, and he even saved them. I
Mm,
thought, when after he saved them, he told them everything that happened, including like that he saved them, uh, and which they would have, from their perspective, they would have thought, like he must know that this means he's not as likely to get the kingdom. Oh wait, no, he has the water of life, so
mhm,
they know that he's still going to get the kingdom. But still, yeah, they're not appreciative for his selflessness or his
mhm.
their lives. They're just trying to get whatever they can. Yeah, I wrote at the top of the story, getting what you're owed. So the brothers are always thinking about the two older brothers are always thinking about that at the beginning of the story and throughout the story. And yes, later they do get in a way what they're owed, which is kind of banishment because
Hmm.
they, have not seemed to be, they don't want to play like a good role in
Hmm.
society. Uh, and the brother obviously gets what the third brother, excuse me, obviously gets what he's owed in a way, but gets much more than that, right? Because
Hmm.
he gets the kingdom for saving his father, supposedly, uh he also gets so much more. He gets, extra gold from the kings that he saves, and he gets the hand of a maiden, of a
Hmm.
beautiful maiden.
Yeah, because I think, yeah, like the brothers are focused on what they feel they were owed, but they forgot that they also have a responsibility to give back to others, like what's owed to them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, they're only thinking of what they're transactional. They're only thinking, well, I'm going to risk my life. I'm going to get the water of life, and then I'm going to get the kingdom. Yeah, they're,
Hmm.
as in other stories, that we read in the Grimm's brothers, they're doing something for the reason, for the expected reward.
Hmm.
And the person who ends up getting more than they would expect is the person who acted selflessly.
Hmm. Yeah, because like they owe their father like loyalty and respect, and their younger brother like love.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
that's right.
and but they
And
don't.
then later
Uh,
gratitude, like utter gratitude
mhm.
for saving them. Yeah. And they would have been fine. But yeah, they have bad hearts, so, they're not going to come to a good end. They don't come to their senses after, presumably they were actually the story says that they're stuck in those ravines for a long
Mhm.
time. Like especially the first brother. It says after a
Mhm.
long time, uh after he was stuck in the ravine,
Mhm.
the second brother decides to try his luck,
Mhm.
so the
Mhm.
and then after him, so both of them are stuck in the ravine for a while. You could think this is a time for self-reflection, but I think this is one really big difference between people with character and people without very good character is reflection,
Mhm.
and I think that's a lot of what uh, talking to a wise person, which in the ancient world was called therapy, terapia, something like that. The Stoics talk about this. And even now, with our therapy, with a psychotherapist, I think at its best, that's that idea where you're talking to someone and you're learning to reflect, and they are reflecting back to you maybe some criticisms and things that you need to know to try to understand how to act well. But yeah, they have all the two older brothers have a long time to reflect, but they're obviously not, they're still just waiting their turn to try to get something that they're owed. Yeah. But yes, yeah. And that's my understanding is that, yeah, reflection is very, very important.
Mhm.
Pascal
I
said
kind of.
something like most of the world's problems come from people not being able to sit in a room alone silently for 30 minutes. That quote stuck that rough quote stuck with me since high school. What were you going to say? Sorry.
So I kind of see the dwarf as kind of a gatekeeper or a balancer of like the
Yeah,
good and
definitely.
evil in the story.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, he's on this road between the dark, the mysterious, which could end in any number of good and bad conclusions. Yeah, exactly. And he just asks a simple question, And yeah, it's a test whether you can, and it's an easy test too, whether you can just, someone's just asking you where you're going. And that's a very good question, actually, when you're on a road to be able to know and to articulate where it is you are going, right? They didn't know where they were going. They ended up getting stuck and they ended up getting banished. But the third prince has humility and he can give him a simple explanation of where he's going and show a little trust too. So show a little bit of vulnerability. You could read that as naivete, but the dwarf is not a malicious dwarf, just one with pride, or one that, it's not about his personal pride. It's about punishing or rewarding good or evil. The uh, last thing maybe I wanted to mention was at the end of the story when the it we're coming up upon the elapsed year that the princess said she would wait for the prince to before their marriage. She sets out the golden road, and to me that was a symbol of sin, where uh, it's about kind of getting it pretty much right, or a certain idea of sin that I have, where it's not so much about particularly avoiding immoral behavior, particularly, or something like that, but more about making the mark accurately. Like, go, and I get this from John Vervaeke too, of knowing, con constantly almost sensing going the right way in a complex environment where you're not going off the path to the right or to the left. And I think, yeah, I think this often happens in life with your actions. And the the two older sons, they just noticed the path itself rather than the the aim, the you know and so they're distracted by that and they go off to the right or to the left. But yeah, the third prince, yeah, he's enamored with his love. He's thinking of the aim itself, and by thinking of the aim, the goal, you are able to navigate and go the right way, whether you know it or not. You sense it, right? And so he doesn't pay attention to the minor detail of like the beautiful path, and he's going more for the love, the kingdom, and things like that. Yeah. Do you have any more thoughts about this story?
No, I just wonder, what do you think about the princess?
Yeah, hadn't thought about her. I mean, they say the fact that she makes him wait. I mean, it could be like Sleeping Beauty a little bit, or where there's this idea that one has to wait to, like, sort of for marriage or for a beautiful maiden or something like that. So he has proven himself in many ways. He first of all, he wanted to help his father. He knew it was dangerous, but still went. He waited for his other brothers to go first, and then so he waited his turn. He had patience. And then, yes, he does not offend the dwarf. He passes the test. It could be the Sphinx or whatever. He passes the test. And then he goes and does what he was told to do, gets into the castle, gets the magical things that he's supposed to. And then he does not falter and he gets the water of life, and but he just barely gets out of the castle and gets his heel clipped. It's a little bit like the ritual wounding in initiation rituals. He is transformed now. He's changed. from all his tests and his magical encounter and his gifts, which are a symbol of the gifts of the soul. So the princess, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, what do you think besides that? Like she makes people wait. There's obviously a theme of 12 where the clock struck midnight in the castle, and that's when the doors close, and also you have to wait 12 months for
Mm,
her. So there's maybe some kind of like completeness there. 12 is like half of a day. It's one
mm,
turn around a clock. So there is something of like one has to wait a full cycle, like a full
mm,
season of life and death for her or
mm.
something.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. Yeah, she makes people wait, and I guess she also shows she has discernment and she's wise when it comes to choosing the right prince. So that kind of showcases her how she's also befitting the youngest prince too. Yeah.
Yes, discernment. Why does she have to do that with the path set out? Why can't she just do it with her own eyes? But that's how these stories are. But what do you think about that? I think it's just maybe an outward sign of her discernment, the fact that she can lay out a certain thing and then yeah, the right person will end up choosing.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not so sure either, but I'm leaning towards what your idea is.
It's a little like Cinderella, although it's Cinderella's more direct because of course the slipper fits her.
Mm,
But it is in a way where the prince coming for you uh well anyway, there's this idea that yeah, as I mentioned before, the people who aren't the right people will make slightly wrong decisions, and the
mm.
slightly wrong decision makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like, yeah, because I think the roles were just a visual thing for her to show who's distracted from the right path in life.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a good illustration of the wrong things are salient to you.
Mm,
To the prince, the third prince, what is salient to him is the princess herself. What is apparent to the senses of the first two princes is the beautiful path itself. So in a way they're like someone who is distracted and enamored by appearances, by wealth, by luxury, things like that, rather than the truer gifts in life, which truly bring happiness
mm,
and uh, ju- and and good things in life.
mm.
Yeah. Why does the princess the why do they have to wait 12 months for the princess? It has yeah something to do with maybe yeah her value, and you could just say it's also about their needs they need time for the rest of the story to play out before the princess comes back in, there's probably some deeper logic to that too. They need to kind of sort things out with the two older brothers and the king, etc. Yeah, but there's something about when he comes back, he's waiting, but when he comes back to the princess, a full eon, a full time has elapsed. So there's some kind of psychologic kind of thing to that. Well, any other thoughts for now?
Not so far.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I like that story too. It was very, very fun.